Hello, everybody. It is your friendlyhood neighborhood INFP here. And today we are going to be looking at uh, the second chapter of How to Make Friends and Influence People. If you guys hadn't already guessed by the title, I'm sure you have. And the book opens up with or not the book, the chapter opens up with an interesting statement, like right off the bat on the first paragraph. It says, "There's only one way under high heaven to get anybody to do anything. Did you ever stop to think about that? Yes, just one way, and that is by making the other person want to do it. Remember, there is no other way." And this is true. There are multiple ways that you can get people to do things that you want them to do. And this book essentially talks about the crude methods, which are via threats, violence, putting a gun to a person's head, threatening to fire them, threatening them with the whip, and all those crude little things that the book calls crude. And then it goes on to, but there are other ways to get people to do what they want. Like, do what you want them to do, but they have to want to do it. And the way to get them to want to do what you want them to do is via what this chapter talks about. I know it's a little confusing. Bear with me. So it goes on to state one of the key factors in getting people to do what you want them to do in a way that they want to do it or would like to do it themselves, rather than forcing them to do something that they don't want to do. And that starts off with something a psychologist by the name of Dr. Dewey, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Dr. Dewey. He said that the deepest urge in human nature is to the desire to be important. Remember that phrase, the desire to be important. And that is true. Everybody, to some extent, has a desire to be important. This entire chapter talks about that desire to be important. The desire to be important, and this is once again what the book talks about, will create people who become heroes or people who become antagonists. It is what gets their name out there. It is what allows people to gather more self-esteem, is this desire to be important. And with that, they go and do or end up in the places where they feel that sense of importance, if that makes sense. So, for example, if somebody was relatively a normal person, and they were suffering from self-esteem, or they were an outcast, or whatever kind of clique you have in school that is like apart from the norm, and they ended up in a gang, if that gang gave them a level of importance, they would stick with that gang. Vice versa, if there was an other side that they felt that level of importance, they would want to be in that side as well. It is why we have all these people doing what they're doing, because of that desire to be important. Now, the other thing is that not a lot of people realize this desire to be important, and thus they will often, while wanting appreciation, don't get me wrong, everybody wants appreciation, but while wanting appreciation, their desire of importance isn't so strong, so they usually end up not fully unlocking their potential, if that makes sense. But anyways, let's go on with what the book says. The book says that there are 8 things that people crave, which are health and the preservation of life, which is 1. 2 is food. 3 is sleep. 4 is money and the things that money will buy. 5 is life in the hereafter. Everybody has thoughts on that. It doesn't matter if you're an atheist or not. Everybody will have an idea as to where you're going in the afterlife. There is no debate about that. It's just what that is highly differs from person to person. 6 is sexual gratification. 7 is the well-being of our children, if we have children. And 8 is the feeling of importance. And this chapter talks about the feeling of importance, so thus we will be only focusing on number 8, at least at this point. I might talk about the others in some other videos or if it comes up in the book, but because this chapter is talking about the feeling of importance, that's where we're going to focus on. And it states that Lincoln once began a letter saying everybody likes a compliment, and William James said the deepest principle in human nature is a craving to be appreciated. And it's not like the wish or desire or want, it is the craving. Like every single person in the world craves to be appreciated. They crave to have the things they've done be appreciated. This is why if you see some people being rowdy and doing things, actually I might take some of this heart when it comes to the youth that I lead. See if I can't use that to cause some of them to calm down, especially when they're being a little rebellious. It's a good principle to put into practice like almost immediately, but then that's the same with the last chapter as well. So because everybody craves the idea of being appreciated, we should send them words of appreciation, not flattery, but I'll get on to that a little bit later. So it goes on, because of people's desire to be important is a chief desire. It's why cities are made. It's why Lincoln studied to be a lawyer when he was a grocery clerk. It's why Dickens wrote his immortal novels. It's why Christopher Wren wrote his symphonies, the Rockefellers to amass millions. Basically, the desire to be important was at such a level that it caused these people to do amazing things, depending on if you consider amazing. Like, they wanted to cause some kind of impact because of their desire to be important. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is going to reach the level of President Lincoln. Nobody, like, he is one of a kind, same with Benjamin Franklin and all the forefathers of America, and even with Canada. And like, typically these people who have gone under to do amazing things have left an impact. If you don't know who they are personally, you know what they have created, such as the telephone, the internet, the computers, etc., etc., etc. They themselves may not be that well known, but their creation, like their desire for at least something they did to be important, has caused an everlasting effect on the world, so to speak. And so it's also why certain people wanted to be called certain things, like to have their like ego. Like, for example, Catherine the Great refused to open letters that weren't addressed to her Imperial Majesty. Now, Catherine the Great, if you weren't know, was one of the czars of Russia, and, or what do you call her, a czarina? I'm just going to stick with a czar. And apparently, according to this book, if you didn't send a letter properly, she wouldn't open it. And all of these things, this importance, like this feeling of importance, leaves people to do certain things, and it can also cause people to go, according to the book, it can cause people to go insane. Because if they don't have, if such, the feeling of importance of what they want to feel important is not achieved, insanity can creep in. Because especially if, like, you have all these desires and then life just takes all of that away from you, there is, I guess, according to these psychologists, this idea that, hey, yeah, you could potentially go insane from this. This is why insanity happens. Now, I don't know how true that is, but that is at least like one of the reasons that this book is suggesting as to why people go insane, to live up to their own level of importance, so to speak, or to achieve that importance that they were striving for, even if it's not happening in life, it's happening in their fantasy. Going on, it talks about this guy named Charles Schwab, and like Andrew Carnegie paid $1 million a year or more than $3,000 a day to Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab was a, what does it say here? He was paid the largest salary because of his ability to deal with people. So, I guess he was kind of like a salesperson, manager, something like that. I don't know the history of Carnegie. I don't know the history of Schwab, but it said that Schwab was such an influential people to the people that Carnegie was dealing with or wanted to deal with, that Schwab was put into that position, not because he was some genius or he was really good at his work, but because of these words that he told, I guess, the author of this book, which are, and she's, the person says, Dale Carnegie, I guess, is the one who wrote it. That would probably be why he knows the person, because he's part of the Carnegie line, maybe? I don't know. Just a thought. But anyways, when he asked Schwab why he was able to get paid so much, and he said that this should be like stuck into every school, taught to every kid, more than some of the other subjects like the annual rainfall of Brazil, because who really needs to know that unless you're in Brazil? But it is like a curious thing to know when you're in social studies. But anyways, I'm getting off the point. So Schwab said, the greatest asset I possess and the way to develop the best that is in a person is by appreciation and encouragement. There is nothing else that so kills the ambitions of a person as criticism from superiors. I never criticize anyone. I believe in giving a person incentive to work, so I am anxious to praise but loath to find fault. If I like anything, I am hearty in my approbation, and I'm hearty in my approbation, I guess that's what that says, and lavish in my praise. And it took me a while because it was a little cut off. So this is very good words for absolutely everybody, because once again, it goes back to the previous chapter. So what I'm beginning to realize with this book is that each chapter complements the one that came after. At least that's how it feels from going from chapter 1 to chapter 2. And in this one, it kind of ties back into chapter 1 in the sense of send people words of appreciation, words of encouragement. Don't demean them. Don't demonize them. Don't criticize them harshly. Criticism is always good, but it has to be constructive criticism. Like there should always be a, okay, well, this is where you went wrong, but this is what you did well, kind of thing, if that makes sense. And this is also why you see, especially in today's day and age, once again, I have to bring this up because it is so prevalent in today's culture, that people, especially via social media, have gotten used to the idea of attacking people. There are no words of appreciation. There are no, well, there are, but like, it's not as prevalent as the conflict that happens. It's why I had to leave forums, because there were such heated debates that eventually came to something I just got tired of. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with other things, that you eventually get tired of going over the same argument over and over and over and over and over again, especially when it goes nowhere. And so, according to this, send people words, find something that you like about the person, and say words of appreciation, say words of encouragement, say something nice about it. And this isn't to say that you should flatter them. In fact, this book goes so far as to say that you shouldn't flatter them. And the difference between flattery and appreciation is that flattery is selfish. You're trying to gain something from that person by flattering them. Appreciation is more genuine. You're able to see the good in a person. Excuse me. Good in a person, or good in what that person has done. versus trying to, for example, the best example I can come across is when a guy or a girl hits on. So if a guy hits on a girl or a girl hits on a guy, that's the best example I can come up on, is if they come up and they give the guy or the girl, depending on who they are, flattering words, they are trying to get that guy or girl to do what they want in a very selfish way, whether that be sex, whether that be dating, whether they're trying to gain something out of it rather than develop a genuine connection. Now, this actually brings me back to a story when I was working in a restaurant, because full disclosure, I do have low self-esteem, something I'm working on. And like even people, teenagers and whatnot, like yell at me for my low self-esteem. But anyways, when I was in a restaurant, they told me to, okay, if I want to find someone to date, or if I want to find a wife, or if I want to find whatever, try giving compliments, and like genuine compliments. And they're like, try using your poetry, try using this. It's not to like get flattery from them, but it was to treat them in the way that this book states to treat them, is in like an appreciative way, that like just see something that you like about a person and say something nice about it. And that was essentially like, the only thing I was supposed to get from that practice was self-confidence, was the confidence to go and talk to people due to my shy nature, which I know doesn't seem like it considering the videos that I do, but I assure you, when it comes to real life, things become much different. So, with the flattery, you're always trying to achieve something of your own selfish desire, whereas appreciation is selfless or unselfish. You're genuinely appreciating someone, whereas flattery is you are being very ungenuine. You don't actually appreciate them for that. You're just trying to gain something from them for the sake of gaining something from them, which doesn't develop that great connections, because you can't always go flattering a person, but you can always go appreciating what a person does for you, if that makes sense in any way. I'm just trying to, yeah. So it gives a suggestion that next time you enjoy a filet mignon at a club, send word to the chef that it was excellently prepared. And when a tired salesperson shows you unusual courtesy, please mention it. I know salespeople can be very difficult to deal with, especially if they're being pushy or grumpy or just irritating. Same thing when you get telecommunicators and just people you generally don't want to deal with. This suggests that you be nice to them or find something. If you're stuck in that situation, find something nice about what they're doing and then mention it. Not in I want to gain this from you, but just for the sake of being kind. That's kind of what they're going for in this appreciation kind of way, is to send compliments just for the sake of sending compliments and not to expect anything in return. So it goes on to say that in our interpersonal relations, we should never forget that all our associates are human beings in hunger for appreciation. It is a legal tender that all souls enjoy. So when you're with your workers, when you're trying to get people to do things, send them words of appreciation instead of being, why aren't you're such a lazy, like, once again, this book is trying to get the point stuck in your head that words matter, and that you should appreciate things that people are doing for you. And so further on, like it talks about, one of the examples it talks about is there's this person who worked at New Fairfield. Let's see here. Yeah. And she was a supervisor of a janitor. So the janitor was lazy, didn't really do his work. Everybody made fun of him. And without success, it says, without success, Pam tried various ways to motivate this person. She noticed that occasionally he did a particularly good piece of work. She made point of praising him for it in front of the other people. So every time so instead of criticizing, she see, okay, what is he actually doing good? Most of what he's doing isn't good, but what is he doing good? So every time she saw him do good, she praised him for it. She said, oh, you're doing a good job of this. And he's like, oh, well, I'm doing a good job. I should do something else then if I'm doing a good job on this. That's probably what like anyone would think. In each day, the job he did all around got better, and pretty soon he started doing all his work efficiently. Now he does an excellent job, and other people give him appreciation and recognition. Honest appreciation got results where criticism and ridicule failed. And it says hurting people not only does not change them, it's never called for. Essentially, so basically tying back to the previous session, or video as it were, people are too keen on criticizing, attacking, lambasting other people, insulting, whatever, and they never think to, well, okay, they are just as human as you and I. Maybe we should treat them with the courtesy and respect and kindness that every human, no matter how much you may not like them, deserves. And so the writer states that they've cut out this a quote that's very good, and they put it on a mirror where they pass by it each day to remind them to act this way. And it says, I shall pass this way. And this is something that, before I continue on, sorry, get distracted, this is something that everybody should look into, because it says that or not look into, should post somewhere, because it's really good. It says, I shall pass this way but once. Any good therefore that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. So, once again, the world is, full of stuff that happens in life, most of it negative, a lot of it positive, and it is not our job to be one of those negative people that causes negative effects upon other people. Instead, we should be a much better example. Now, I know this is hard. You're going to be dealing with people you want to be mean to. You're dealing with people that you don't want to deal with. But if you can do it, it will cause things to happen for all the better. And the last paragraph of the book says, let's cease thinking of our accomplishments, our wants. Let's try to figure out other person's good points. Then forget flattery. Give honest, sincere appreciation. Be hearty in your approbation, and lavish in your praise. And people will cherish your words and treasure them and repeat them over a lifetime. Repeat them years after you have forgotten them. Thus, principle number 2, give honest and sincere appreciation. This is, once again, not something that is all that easy to do, but I kind of feel that it is easier to do than Chapter 1. But if you can utilize what it talks about in Chapter 2 with Chapter 1, at least if you start with, like, Chapter 2, like giving appreciation, giving words of compliments to people you don't like, then it should become easier to deal with what I talked about in Chapter 1. So yeah, very good information in this book, once again, especially in this chapter, where I guess it's talking more about kindness. That's the way I'll put the appreciation it's talking about, is the kindness, to be kind to each other, to send words of appreciation. And I would, if you guys want to change as much as I want to change, be sure to do that. Also, one last thing, and I keep forgetting this, if you do like these videos, do remember to like and subscribe. With that being said, I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.